So hey, what's up everyone? We're gonna do something pretty neat today. I have this tasty little video demo we're going to do. We're actually going to draw a process diagram. And process diagrams are important in UX because we can use a process diagram to map out a new service we're designing. We can map out the way in which people use the new apps that you're designing, the tasks that they're completing within those apps. We can map out critical user journeys. All sorts of different things. And really, lots of different things can be broken down into a process diagram. So while my kids are at school today, I'm going to pick them up in a bit. I'm actually prepping their lunch, and I wanted to walk you through the process of roasting sweet potatoes that I'm going to serve as part of their lunch today. And as we do this process, we are going to create a process diagram. Nothing more relatable than that, right? Making lunch for your kids? All right, let's head over to the kitchen. Here we go. Okay, so first step in our process, we want to be sanitary. So what we're going to do is we're going to wash our sweet potato that we're going to roast. So I'm going to do that first. Wash it nice and thoroughly, make sure there's no pesticides there. Now, if we're going to capture this in a process diagram, that's our first step. So we're actually going to go over to our paper and we're going to draw a box. We're going to add a label inside that box. And that's the first part of our process diagram. Now, most Western cultures read from left to right, top to bottom, so on your paper you might want to start on the left side of your paper or somewhere near the top if you're creating a vertical diagram. Okay, so our next step here, I hope you have a peeler handy. We have to peel the potatoes. So I'm gonna go ahead and start doing that. All right, so we've completed step 2. Now, how do you think we add this to our diagram? You might have guessed it. So we're going to add another box out to the right, and that's really step 2 of our process diagram. Now, what we can do next is connect the first box to the second box by drawing an arrow. So now we're implying the direction of the flow. We're going to add a label inside that box that says we're peeling the potato. All right, so let's go on to our third step in this process. So we washed the sweet potato, we peeled it. Now we're going to chop it into 1/2-inch cubes. All right, so now that we have completed our third step, we can go ahead and add it to the diagram. And you might have guessed it, we're going to add another rectangle out to the right of our previous step. We can connect them with an arrow, and of course we always want to label our steps. So in this box, we're going to add a label that explains that we chopped the sweet potatoes. Okay, so for our next step, we're just gonna add the potatoes to our baking sheet here that's lined with foil. I'm going to add some olive oil, a little bit of salt and pepper for flavor, and we're just gonna jumble them around here, toss them around on the sheet so they're ready to roast. So this prep step is going to be our fourth step in the process diagram. We're gonna draw yet another rectangle out to the right of our previous step. We can once again connect it with an arrow, and then in the box, we can just add a label that indicates that we've prepped the potatoes on the baking sheet so they're ready to roast. Okay, so we have one more step, and that's to get these potatoes in the oven so we can roast them and get ready to eat. So let's go do that next. This is going to be the last box I add to my diagram. And out on the right side of the box, I'm going to add a thicker line. Now you could add perhaps a little bit of red or a color in here to indicate that you're going to stop. I'm going to use a hatching pattern, fill every other hatch line in just to kind of create this neat little graphic that just implies the end of my process. So one thing I did when I put the baking sheet in the oven is my arm brushed up against the baking rack, and it's pretty hot in the oven, it's preheated, so I burnt my arm a little bit. Now, in a lot of workflow diagrams, process diagrams, journey maps, it's customary to mark pain points because these are areas of opportunity. If we're to redesign this process, we can think of how we might want to improve it. So I'm gonna add a little symbol next to this step, perhaps a caution icon. We'll start with a triangle, we'll add a little exclamation point inside, and I'll just add a little label to it that I burnt myself. And this is a pain point in this particular process. Okay, so a couple other things we're going to add to this diagram. We added one pain point where I burnt myself. One of the other common issues with a lot of workflow diagrams, process maps, even journey maps, is depending on how they're created, it's not clear to the viewer where the map starts. So we intentionally used arrows here. We placed the first step in the upper left because we know in Western cultures we read from left to right, top to bottom. But I'm actually just going to add a little triangular indication highlighting the starting point of this map. And I would suggest that you do the same in your UX drawings. So today we drew a map. There's obviously other low fidelity ways we can create process diagrams. We can do the same thing with Post-its and arrange them in a line. Somewhere in the future, we can do a deeper dive into process diagrams and talk about how to handle conditionals, maybe points where you have to go back to a previous step and do it over in some sort of looping fashion. We'll get to that in more detail in a future video. But for today, I hope you enjoyed this tasty little video on drawing process diagrams. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to drawing with you again sometime soon.